1 month ago on August 14th, I led the service here and passed through the town of Lower Lake on my way home, probably about 1:15 in the afternoon. My phone was ringing when I reached home, a friend wanting to know if I'd made it home safe. She knew I'd be in Lake County, and she had already heard about the Clayton Fire. 1 year ago, on Sunday, September 13th, 2015, I was on my way here, and I always come up the Napa Valley and go through Middletown. I was on my way to leave the service when I was stopped on Route 29, just south of Middletown. The Valley Fire had exploded after Cobb overnight and was incinerating Hidden Valley and other parts of Middletown. I took a long detour west to 101, then I came over the Hopland Road and made it here just barely 5 minutes before the service at 11. 15 years ago, on a Tuesday morning, September 11th, 2001, I was at home in Lakeport getting ready to see a teenager client in my office. The phone rang. It was my daughter in San Jose. She said, "Turn on your TV." I watched then and over the toppling of the towers of the World Trade Center in New York, the city where I was born and grew up. I watched the crash into the Pentagon and the wreckage of the plane that went down in Pennsylvania. These disasters are heartbreaking and unforgettable. The attacks of 9/11, Clayton Fire, were disasters forged by human intent and action. The Valley Fire had more the character of a natural disaster, though tinged with our realization that climate change and the warming of the earth have had their impact. The severe drought of recent years, seasons of record-setting high temperatures, and lots of available fuel, the woods and grasslands that spell the beauty of Lake County needed only the accidental spark of faulty wiring to ignite the blaze. Its intensity created its own unpredictable winds, perhaps intensified by air currents provoked from a distant hurricane named Linda. The fire spun out of control. You've been here, you've lived it. It turned 76,000 acres to ashes, destroyed 1,300 homes, and led to 5 deaths. But the Valley Fire was just the worst of recent fires, like the Rocky Fire, Jerusalem Fire, that altogether took out about 170,000 acres. Well, those are numbers. 2 families that I've known for many years lived on Cobb, and they had their homes and everything they owned destroyed. One friend wrote me, "The Valley Fire took our home. Like many, we have our own story of escaping through those curtains of fire. Now we continue to cut and process out the many standing dead trees on our property. The most cruel and tedious part of the process, though, is a daily task, making my list of house contents." She was still filling in forms for the insurance company to determine the amount of their claim. My other friend also lost her house, studio, and land, all burnt to the ground. She wrote a poem that's become my inner experience of the fire. Some of you may know her, Christina Rukala, who occasionally has attended services here. She is an ordained interfaith minister, and she changed careers to become a psychotherapist just as I was making the transition to ministry. We had lunch and our paths absolutely crossed. She's given me permission to read this. She would be here herself, but she's recovering from some recent surgery. The valley is burning. A chaos of erratic winds, glowing orange in confusion and adrenaline. Grabbing anything, a painting, the spirit house, some papers, running from destruction. Smoke, ash, walls of red racing toward me, ridges of exploding trees across the mountain and sky. Tornadoes of fire following me down the mountain, sinking into the darkness of an amber windswept mind. Not knowing. Kittens hiding in the corner, staring at the screen, desperately looking for information. Darkness deepens. Flames burn at a distance. Which way are they burning? Frayed, exhausted, and wired. Technicolor images of destruction. Facebook, newsfeed, maps, videos, accurate and inaccurate. No light. Smoke-filled skies. No moon, no stars. Glowing trees. Strange winds that fueled the burning. Staring at the distant glow. In horror, watching the flames cross the ridge, consuming my mountain. My house must be gone. Maybe it survived. Lingering in a parking lot, dazed, holding strangers connected in trauma. Darkness encompassing my heart. No light. Where do I go? Emergency shelters, Red Cross, or friends, panic calls. We're okay. Cat's safe. Don't know about the house. Friends are still missing. Afraid to leave. Afraid to stay. Where do I go? Sitting in a friend's room, thick smoke outside, with strangers gathered around the table, looking for information deep into the night. 3 families, 3 towns, all in flames, not knowing. Fitful sleep. Waking, startled and disoriented, a second of forgetting, followed by a flood of memory. Rushing into the living room, bumping into strangers. 10 people, 8 cats, 3 dogs, and a couple of rooms. Sleeping bags, pillows, blankets everywhere. Animals hiding, fighting, trying to adjust. Thick smoke blocking the morning sun. Numb, irritable, exhausted. Pots of coffee, searching the net. I hear Middletown's gone, Cobb's gone, Hidden Valley's gone. The Riviere's evacuating. We're safe for now, maybe. That refrain, we're safe for now, maybe. That goes over the charred hills and down through the days and weeks and months as one counts the losses and walks forward into a world of change. The questions are there for many without answers even a year later. Are we safe now? Do we rebuild on the burnt out land? Do we rebuild in the area? Or should we move to a new place altogether? How do we mend from horror? How do we start over? Where do we start? And for those who've lost no property, how to remend from the confusion and distress and dislocation around us. How to rebuild a community that's had to emerge from that thick smoke that blocked the light. And how do we reach out to help and heal? I look back on the experience of my native city, New York, and the experience of America. Our sense of safety has never been fully restored. Witness our endless wars in the name of fighting terror, and the acts of terror that have destroyed innocent people in so many cities of the world, including Rome. It took the various factions in New York at least 5 years even to agree on a general plan for what and how to rebuild on ground zero. And that process of rebuilding is not complete yet. So maybe taking a year here to make decisions to find or build a new home a year, that's a long time. Will there be fires again in Lake County? The vulnerability is real. Hot weather, the long drought, the availability of fuel in grasslands and wooded areas, houses built of flammable materials like shake roofs. The ignition is inevitable, either by lightning or by people, however unintended. The truth is that wildfires are on the increase in every continent around the globe. In North America, the Fort McMurray fire in Alberta, Canada, that burned across more than 2,200 square miles and destroyed more than 2,400 buildings. The year 2015 broke records for Northern California, and scientists believe that the records will go on being broken. Fighting fires of itself is not a solution. Weed abatement alone is not a solution. Some measures that reduce the risk to homes need a lot of resistance. You know, I thought of the analogy between California's wildfires and that rise of catastrophic flooding along our coasts. Is it okay to rebuild on your property where the waters last year rose up to the rooftop? If you rebuild, do you have to erect your house on stilts so you can wait out the next flood at home? If you don't rebuild there, where do you go? And how do you afford that? Should new housing developments be allowed in areas that are vulnerable to flooding? And if not, how does a community deal with rising population? And so, with coping with wildfires, what might be done to cut the risk of losing one's home to fire? There was a piece called Living with Fire in the American Scientist journal, and it described a California community that took these measures. All landscaping must be approved by fire district officials. Roads must be wide enough for emergency vehicles. Houses have to be built or retrofitted with fire-resistant materials. Owners must install residential fire sprinklers, a minimum of 100 feet of defensible space required around all buildings, and quite a few other requirements. This strategy, which is a rarity anywhere, assumes that fire will strike, but people can safely shelter in place till the fire burns its way past. Nothing of these measures, though, would protect one's horse, a goat, a cow, not to mention deer, squirrels, and all the other beautiful creatures that share this world. And even if we shelter in place, we're people with emotional lives and minds that will remember always the disruption and disaster. We grieve, we must grieve, and then we must mend to start over. That's where the amazing grace of community comes in. For both the families I know who lost their homes on COD, friends reached out, took them in, and helped them find temporary places to live until they could begin that long journey forward. The stories of healing begin in the shelters where, as Christina wrote, dazed, holding strangers connected in trauma. And the healing begins in the homes of these loving and generous friends. And I know that the community at large stepped up with a Lake County Wildfire Relief Fund, and it reached out again after the Clayton Fire. I found a moving account in the Lake County News. I kind of download it very regularly to see what's happening. And the Lake County Record V. There was an account of the place, Brick Hall in Lower Lake, that opened up a temporary community center and provided 3 meals a day, day after day, and made it also a place where people could meet neighbors and share their experience. That's as much needed as food. The trauma of the fires go beyond homes or business properties that are gone. When that smoke blocks the light and the roads are closed, and schools are shut down, and businesses are disrupted, when friends are among those who are evacuated and those who won't see their homes again, an entire community is in turmoil and grief. In 9/11, in 2001, there was more than 3,000 victims and their families who suffered. An entire city and an entire nation suffered. And condolences came from around the world. It's more than food that feeds the soul. There needs to be a place to bring our stories, our memories, our questions, fears, struggles, and hopes. I know my friend Christina, who wrote that vivid poem, has built a new home in a new neighborhood in Lake County. I do believe, important as it is to have a home again, just the writing of that narrative, her story in the fire, and sharing it, is a significant part of her ongoing healing. It's all right to tell and retell the story. Some grief and fears drained away with each telling. It's all right to hear those stories once and again. They're all interconnected. What we hear is not only grief and frustration and the terrible questions, what to do and why me and so on, but also that strength and resilience as we see people walk forward and make a new start. For those who tell their story, there's the making of a vibrant connection that resolves that loneliness of loss and trauma. At least part of the restoration in New York has been the creation of sacred space. A memorial park now stands on the site of the Twin Towers, with reflecting pools, trees, and the names of the dead incised in granite. It's a place where survivors can grieve, meditate, pray, meet to share their lives. It's a place where strangers can come with awe and respect and learn something of the immediacy of 9/11. It's a place where those too young at the time, where they can come and understand the history of the devastation that changed the life of the city and of our country. I think about the significance of sacred spaces, far smaller. From time to time, here at home and in my travels in Europe, I've seen roadside shrines with flowers and other honoring symbols, sometimes a cross, but sometimes many other symbols, where someone died in an accident. I wonder if the communities so hard hit by the Valley Fire and this year the Clayton Fire, those communities like Cott and Middletown and Hidden Valley and Lower Lake, might have included some sacred space in their rebuilding. Or perhaps a bit of earth in the county seat, Lakeport. Suppose it were Library Park, might be set aside for commemoration. Perhaps, if this hasn't already been done, there is a patch of land somewhere where the names of neighbors who died might be written, where something beautiful and sheltering could grow, and where neighbors and strangers might take a moment to rest quietly on a bench and contemplate the sky and hold in heart grief and also the courage of renewal of our sisters and brothers. So, these are my prayers on this potent anniversary. Anniversaries of the Valley Fire and the attacks of 9/11. May we hold in our hearts all those whose lives have been changed forever by catastrophe. May we open our eyes to see and open our ears to hear their stories and share their pain. May we reach out in generous spirit to help. May we celebrate the strength of those who have walked forward out of unspeakable destruction. And may we make sacred spaces to rest, to heal, and to nurture hope. May it be so.